A Word About Silver by Edward G. Bourne, published in Cosmopolitan in 1886, Volume 1, Issue 3. So, the very beginning of Cosmopolitan. 1886. All right. The article reads, "No other question now under public discussion is so vitally concerns the prosperity of our people, rich and poor alike, as the silver question. Yet, in spite of the importance of the issue, the popular mind is not awakened, and, though no question could require more sober and careful consideration, none is debated more unwisely and passionately. Indeed, many of the congressional speeches reveal a lack of understanding and display an amount of buncombe that are positively startling. The truth is, the inborn desire of man to make money without earning it, in other words, to be able to command the services of his fellows without having rendered them an equivalent, has made him in all ages, singularly prone to be deceived by a great variety of fallacies when dealing with the theory of money. Other doctrines of science are established, once and for all. Their history is one of continual progress. The true doctrine of money, on the other hand, has to be set forth and defended in every generation, if not in every decade, and, though fairly apprehended by the ancients, it eludes the grasp of many of our legislators and is perfectly incomprehensible to the owners of silver mines. In view, then, of the pitfalls that beset every discussion of money, it will be no waste of space to give a few definitions and principles, armed with which the reader may test for himself the soundness of what is asserted by both sides of this controversy. The inconvenience of barter forced men in an early stage in the growth of civilization to agree upon some medium of exchange and measure of value. They generally chose some metal of recognized utility. This step marked one of the greatest advances in the history of the race. The objects thus chosen to serve as measures of value in a simple exchange were found exceedingly useful as standards of value, in arranging future transactions, and as a store of value, or a condensed and portable form to which property might be reduced for convenience in moving or concealment. These are the services that money performs, and any proposed kind of money should be examined to see how well it meets these wants. From the uses of money to the qualities it should possess is a natural step, and probably the reader fully realizes how important it is that money should have a steady and known value. A moment's unprejudiced reflection will reveal the absurdity of a variable measure and standard of value, maintaining the appearance of identity by preserving its name without change. It is equally evident how much the usefulness of such a measure of value is impaired when, to uncertainty of value over a long period, is added uncertainty of value at any given time. Nothing so paralyzes business or deadens one's enterprise as this feeling of uncertainty about the value of money. A fever of speculation sometimes arises under such circumstances, but it is an unnatural kind of vigor, almost always followed by prostration. A consideration of the qualities of money and the causes that led to its invention plainly shows that the choice of a substance to be set apart for use as money is merely the choice of a tool of business. It is a practical question to be solved by an appeal to reason and experience, and, in discussing it, the exhibition of party passion, with its pathetic tale about the poor man's dollar and its denunciation of gold bugs, only too surely reveals the presence of ulterior motives of personal interest. Just as much out of place are the personifications of silver as a beneficent agency, which some depraved men propose to strike down after long and faithful service, during which it paid the young republic's debts, and, as one congressman said, had been used by our Lord in rendering tribute unto Caesar. One might as well plead for a return to stagecoaches, because the fathers of the young republic rode in them, or for the adoption of the rude Syrian plow, because our Lord probably made one. Reason and experience, our guides in this matter, have led, in most cases among civilized nations, to the use of gold and silver as money, but too great emphasis cannot be laid upon the fact that the choice is governed by the needs of the country, and not by any appeal to antiquity or the divine order of the world. Such appeals might have been made by the Spartans for their iron money, or by the early Romans for theirs of copper, when a silver money was proposed. All arguments of this kind overlook a notable peculiarity of money, that a metal may possess all the requisites of good money at one stage of a nation's progress, and be much inferior to a more precious metal when a higher condition of development has been reached. Copper makes the best money in a country where commodities and labor are very cheap, and when the greatest part of the business is done on a small scale. Suppose, then, that by the progress of civilization and the multiplication of wealth, the average transaction involves a sum 20 times as large as in the first case. Copper, then, is no longer convenient for the standard medium of exchange, and silver better serves the purpose. Another similar advance is made. Silver becomes too bulky, and gold is employed as the standard, not because of a divine or ancestral sanction, or from patriotic reasons, but simply for convenience. In each of these cases, we may suppose a man to be able to receive the equivalent of a month's wages in about the same bulk, capable of being carried in a common leather purse. If he earns 5 cents a day, his daily needs would not be met by a silver currency. If he earns $20 a day, silver is much too unwieldy for his pay. It must not be concluded, however, that with such advances the money previously used is to disappear upon the adoption of a new standard. On the other hand, it generally stays in circulation and settles just such transactions as it is fitted for. There are 1 or 2 more principles to be stated, and then we shall be ready to consider the problem before us. It has been found by experience, and accords with reason, that if no obstructions are placed in the way, the stock of coin money in the world adjusts itself, giving to each nation in proportion to its needs. If there is a sudden expansion of business in one country, causing demand for more money, there is a readjustment of the world stock following a flow of money into that country, just as air flows into a space where it is less dense. If a new supply of money is added to the stock of one, it does not all stay there, but, yielding to this tendency to maintain an equilibrium, it distributes itself over the world. The amount of money that each country receives under this self-acting process is called its requirement of money. Another long-observed phenomenon in the circulation of money has been generalized under the name of Gresham's law, because first expounded by Sir Thomas Gresham about 300 years ago. In brief terms, this principle reads, bad money drives out good money, but good money cannot drive out bad money. A little reflection will convince one that this is a true natural law. That is, an observed regularity of natural action which may be suspended, it is true, by a greater counterforce, but which can never be legislated or laughed out of existence. Many congressmen hold up Gresham's law to mockery because its action is not evident to them. But in such a case, it is well to remember that one of the greatest of the world's mockers never had anything but scorn for the newly discovered law of attraction. Dean Swift laughed at the new theories of Newton, and now the schoolboys laugh at the dean. The simple explanation of this law is that when 2 kinds of money are in circulation, one more and the other less valuable, every one who has both kinds will pass off the poorer first and hoard the better as much as he can. Money dealers will buy the better with the worse and either store it or send it out of the country. If, then, there is a constant supply of the poorer money, the better kind gradually disappears from circulation. If the supply of the poorer money is limited, enough of the better will remain in circulation, together with it, to fill the country's requirement of money. This is a very important fact, and will explain most cases where Gresham's law seems not to have worked. Another illustration of these 2 points is offered by the issue of irredeemable paper currency. It does not necessarily depreciate at first, but will circulate alongside of better money. An amount equal to the country's requirement of money may be issued oftentimes without a depreciation, but as soon as that limit is overpassed, the international readjustment ceases because foreigners will not take the paper. If the issue is then continued, there is an immediate inflation of prices, which is only a depreciation of money looked at from the other side. This depreciation will continue as long as the issue increases more rapidly than the requirement of money in that country. We are now ready to consider the silver question in its real character. Our unit coin or standard measure of value is the dollar. Common sense, even without an appeal to the principles laid down, would declare that a standard should be one thing, not a variable quantity. But the silver dollar of 412.5 grains has gradually fallen in value till it is worth only 4/5 as much as the gold dollar of 25.8 grains. Here, then, is a strange condition of things: a long and a short dollar. Which is the dollar? Which is the standard? Is not the case very much the same as if Congress had adopted the meter as the standard for long measure, calling it a yard, and at a later day restored the old-fashioned yard to its position as a legal standard? We should then have 2 yards, one 39.37 inches and the other 36 inches long. This would make confusion enough in business, but it would be not so bad as the $2, unless we suppose that the 36-inch yard is gradually shrinking, one year being 35 inches long, another 33, and then again, vacillating like silver, 33.5, only to soon fall to 32, etc. This would be too absurd to be defended by the most notional shopkeeper. But let the standard be one of value and not length, and we have it warmly advocated by a variety of men, only too many of whom want to buy or help their constituents to buy at long measure and sell at short measure, so as to pocket the difference. The cases are closely paralleled. With cloth at $1 a yard, the question in one case is, how much cloth do you get for $1? In the other, how much do you pay for a yard of cloth? The absurdity of the matter is clear enough to anyone who grasps the meaning of money. Every consideration of sense and reason would seem to command that either the silver dollar should be made equal in value to the gold dollar, or else, if that is impracticable, to be legal tender for only small sums, and in any case, the compulsory coinage stopped. Some say, in effect, make silver the standard. The great argument against that is that this country, with the more commercial nations of Europe, has outgrown a silver standard and is at the stage where gold best meets its needs. Some congressmen have enumerated the millions of Asia and South America who use silver and set them off against the small minority of nations that use gold as the standard. But they could argue the same way and with equal propriety against railroads or banks. The danger of our position is that business is now carried upon a gold basis, while a short or less valuable dollar is being coined by law at the rate of 2 millions per month. Now, anyone who has grasped the idea of the requirement of money, which every country has, and which is determined by circumstances, and cannot be settled by legislation, will perceive the folly of forcing offhand a coinage of $2 million a month, and perhaps will be susceptible of the impression that the interest of the Western mine owners in the step is not wholly patriotic. Some congressmen, in fact, boldly acknowledge that they are actuated merely by the desire to provide a market for the new product of their districts, and maintain that their action is simply an effort to extend the help of the government to an industry that is not and cannot be aided by the tariff. The case is a simple one. Silver is falling, but by getting the government to buy steadily at least $20 million worth a year, the market is bolstered up somewhat, and the mine owners derive a double advantage from the law. Why, then, do they agitate for free coinage? Because that means that they can take their whole product to the mint to be coined, which is equivalent to having the government buy their whole product. Is anyone surprised, then, at the earnest convictions of the Colorado and Nevada congressmen, several of them mine owners, that free coinage is the open door to prosperity for the country? Furthermore, in view of the fact that silver is now falling in price, does anyone suppose this fall would be stopped by just turning the bullion into dollars? It would continue just the same, and that is why all greenbackers and inflationists are for free coinage. The advocates of silver wholly misapprehend the question when they declare that the silver dollar is not inferior because it buys as much as the gold dollar, and Gresham's law is a mistake because, at this juncture, gold is imported into the country. If this forced coinage of 2 million short dollars per month is kept up, or if the coinage is made free, the silver will push out the gold, either to be hoarded or exported. The silver may not immediately depreciate, but as soon as the country's requirement of money is met by the number of 80-cent dollars in use, or even before that, gold will disappear wholly from circulation at par and be quoted at something like 125. If the forced coinage should continue, the premium would rise. Long-standing accounts would be settled for perhaps 4/5 of their original value. This is called legislation for the people by certain congressmen who divide up the country into two classes, debtors and creditors, or the people and the gold bugs. Is there not a fallacy in such a division, to say nothing of its appeal to questionable motives? Is not every man a creditor as well as a debtor? On the payday of a large manufactory, are not the working men the creditors? The people at large are the creditors of the United States. More than 50% of the outstanding bonds are said to be held in savings banks and trust companies as securities for the deposits of laboring men and women. Anyone who has followed the first part of this article must see the folly and absurdity of two separate dollars, and the cheaper coined in regular quantities by the law. It is equally clear that the safety lies only in the direction of ceasing the forced coinage and of some limitation of the full legal tender of silver, or, if free coinage is to be adopted, of putting silver enough in the dollar to make it equal in value with gold. It is difficult to see what grounds can be urged against these suggestions, which, however, have been made again and again without avail. In fact, no valid arguments are brought forward, but merely sentimental and dishonest appeals for the poor man's dollar and against the gold bugs. The truth is, no one wants the best dollar more or feels more cruelly the effects of cheap money than the poor man, and when depreciated currency is abroad, no one is gladder than he to be a gold bug, if by that is meant a man who knows a dollar when he sees it and knows enough to keep it if he can. It has been asserted by the silver men that a single standard, who would naturally have thought of anything else, is impossible, because there is not enough gold to meet the country's requirement of money without a disastrous fall in prices. This sounds plausible, but overlooks the fact that no advocate of a single standard proposes to have anything but gold money. On the other hand, it is designed that there shall be all the silver in circulation that is needed, but that 80 cents shall not be a dollar, merely because it is in white instead of yellow metal, and because certain men own silver mines, and that the commercial interests of the country shall not be exposed to the manipulations of a lot of inflationists, who, defeated in their greenback schemes, have fallen upon the device of unlimited coinage of a short dollar as the best substituted hand. It is sometimes affirmed that silver has not fallen, but that gold has risen. that we should not speak of an 80-cent silver dollar, but of a 125-cent gold dollar, and that an attempt to make the latter the standard is an unjust and cruel piece of legislation for creditors. This is perhaps the most subtle argument advanced in favor of silver. But if the assertion could be proved, it would be no argument for compulsory silver coinage or for putting the business of the country upon a silver basis, though it might be for reducing the value of a gold dollar. It has not been proved, until it has been, that unlimited coinage of a short dollar is indefensible. The arguments commonly urged to support this view are by no means convincing, though at first sight apparently sound. In brief, they are comprehended in the statement that silver has not fallen in price in comparison with the other commodities save gold, but that its apparent fall has merely kept pace with the general fall of prices. Now, since a general fall of prices is only another name for the rise in value of money, it is concluded that gold has risen and is rising. In reply, it may be said that a general fall of prices may result from a contraction of credit and have nothing to do with the price of gold, and further, that the price of silver, in this connection, is compared with the price of the great staple commodities and the useful metals. Now, it is indisputable that the prices of such commodities have fallen within a few years, wholly independent of the price of gold. The appliances for producing them have been so multiplied and cheapened, and the cost of transportation so much reduced of late, that there has been a natural and an expected fall in their price. Again, silver is relatively less used in the arts than it was formerly, on account of the invention and increasing use of electroplating. This, with the demonetization of silver by Germany, has undoubtedly reduced its price. Nor must we forget the immense increase in the production of silver in this country. All these considerations make the theory of this silver extremely doubtful. Professor Simon Newcomb has recently advanced two other arguments against this supposed rise of gold. First, that it costs more, as he learns, to build a house now than it did 10 years ago, and that the cost has not recently been diminishing, which would show that the house builder earns as many gold dollars as he ever did. Secondly, it appears from Mr. Hadley's Connecticut Labor Report that the rate of wages is the same in 1886 as in 1880, which, if correct, would disprove any statement that there has been a general fall of prices. Such are the chief principles involved and arguments advanced in the discussion of the silver problem. As was said at the beginning of this article, it is certainly the most important public question of today. If it is settled wrongly, the country will be plunged again into the evils of an inflated and depreciating currency. If it is settled rightly, business will take a new start. The infusion of confidence in the future in commercial centers will have a favorable influence in the remotest corners of the country, and a great step in relieving trade from a long depression will have been made.